welcome to Brew Builds, your place for DIY home improvements. I'm Paul. Today I'll start building a small retaining wall that will go around the perimeter of the patio pavers. I'll be using concrete block and then covering that block with stucco. You ready? Let's start building. This is part of the backyard makeover project that I've been working on. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Brew Builds to see more DIY videos. Since this is the first time building a wall like this, I decided to go ahead and put a small section together first. I've learned a few things, and there's a couple things I still need to figure out concerning the curve and where to put the steps. But I'm ready to start placing the rest of these blocks. Tools and items needed: concrete blocks and caps, concrete mix, mortar mix, stucco base coat mix, smooth coat stucco mix, stucco color pack, 3 1/8-inch rebar, a London trowel, a masonry saw, a steel stucco float, a green foam float, a red rubber float, a couple of buckets, a mixing tub, a rubber hammer, a level, a small shovel, a grinder, a tape measure, knee pads, gloves, and your personal safety gear. To build the small retaining wall, I'm using these 6 by 16 by 8 concrete blocks. I'm only going 1 block high and then putting a cap on top of it. The footing for this wall will be the repurposed sump blocks that I use for the patio paver edging. On the brew scale, technical ability I rate as an expert. Building a wall and applying a smooth stucco surface is challenging for DIYers. Physical ability I rate as hard. Lifting blocks, mixing mortar, applying stucco while working on your knees will wear you out. If I were to do this again, I think I should have built the perimeter wall first before putting in the pavers. It would have been easier to build a wall if I built an actual footing for these blocks, built the wall, and then put in the pavers. However, waiting to put in the perimeter wall after I put in the pavers gave me the ability to make slight adjustments in the perimeter edging, allowing me to put the pavers in without cutting many of them. I still need to remodel the side yards, so maybe I'll put the wall in first in that area and see which way worked better. One of the first things I discovered is that these concrete blocks are wider than the sump blocks I reused as edging for the pavers. I'm also going to set these concrete blocks back 3/8 of an inch from the front edge to make room for the layer of stucco. So I dug out some dirt from the back side of the edging, then filled in that area with some compacted gravel, then concrete. I let that dry for a day, then leveled off the footings with some mortar to make a wider surface for the new concrete blocks. Now that I have the footings prepared, it's time to start laying down some of these blocks. I'm wanting the top of the block to be the same height as the concrete pillar support, so it looks like I need about a 1/2 inch of mortar to get it up this high. I learned from doing my small sample wall not to make the mortar too thin, or it would just squeeze out from the bottom. All in all, it's time to mix up some mortar and put another brick in the wall.
How can you have any pudding if you don't eat your meat? You can't have any pudding if you don't eat your meat.
I've been laying out the blocks in this area, and unfortunately I was able to reuse this piece that I cut for the other side. Right here we're going to be putting in a step using these sandstones. So I need to cut one of these blocks in half and then kind of figure out how wide we want the step to be. I'm going to get this marked and then go cut it, and then I can get the rest of these blocks put in place here. Hey, this is day 2 of the block wall installation. I just have one more section to do and another step-up area. It went okay yesterday. Doing this, I actually found the most stressful out of any of the backyard makeover projects that I've done. It's probably because it was all new to me. I had an issue when I was working on this step area. I ran out of mortar and I mixed up a quick batch, but it was too thin, so this small block sank too much into the mortar and it wasn't level. So I ended up taking some of the mortar out of these smaller blocks that were still wet, and I used it to raise up this block. Another issue was when I did the dry fit, these gaps were much smaller, so I'm going to have to fill in these gaps with some concrete. I also want to fill with concrete the triangular gaps between the small blocks that make up the curve. This is definitely a slow process for me doing it by myself. Get some help if you can. Moving the blocks and mixing the mortar did start wearing me out a bit. Also, I think I'm glad that I'm covering this up with stucco because I found it very challenging to get these seams to look good. I'm sure my technique could use a lot of improvement. Alright, that's enough talking. Let's get back to work. I'm wanting to add a piece of rebar under the cinder blocks to strengthen the wall. Some of these have an opening for the rebar, but I also ended up with some that just have a little groove. So I'm going to take an angle grinder to make the grooves bigger to allow space for the 3/8 inch rebar to fit within the block. Hopefully this will help keep the wall from cracking.
Be sure to wear a face mask when doing this.
Now this cinder block will sit flush with the other ones. You want the wall foundation to be clean, so spray the area with some water. Also, a moist base will help keep the mortar from drying too quickly. 2 full-size blocks are in position from the corner with a proper spacing between them. The third block will need to be cut. Using a speed square, I'll mark the top, and since my concrete saw can't cut through a 6-inch block, I'll need to draw a line on both sides. The block should be on a level flat surface. This one is a little wobbly. Looks like there's a high spot in the middle. I'll take the angle grinder to the base to level the surface. That is much better. I got all these blocks test fit, so I'm ready to mix up some mortar and get these blocks put in place. I need to work on the base for the step to make it level, so I'll mix up some concrete and put it into this crack as well as fill in these holes. This will give me a stronger base for the blocks that the sandstone rock step will rest on. Since I mixed up some concrete, I'll also fill in the triangular sections of the curved part of the wall. I just wedged in some old pieces of wood to act as a concrete form. Now that that is all done, I can get the last cinder blocks in place. To help protect the stucco coat from moisture, I went ahead and sealed the back side of the cinder blocks with this sealer. I think I'm ready to start putting the caps on top of this wall. Let me just check my list. Alright, so we installed the rebar, and then I put the blocks in, sealed the back of the blocks. I got a haircut, that part is optional, and I filled in the bottom of the blocks with some concrete. I did that to avoid any small cracks developing in the stucco caused by the bricks moving slightly. So to strengthen the wall, I added some concrete about 2 inches at the bottom, and that will help strengthen the bond as well as cover up the rebar. If there's one thing I learned about doing mortar, is that it's a messy job. I think I have too much of a precision brain, and I want to use just the exact amount and not waste anything. It would probably work better if I used too much mortar and let it ooze out, and then took some of the excess mortar and used on the next block. Also, I'm probably going to find it a bit challenging putting these caps on because I'll need to get the proper amount of mortar on the top of the brick here without it falling inside the block or off the block. So with that, I need to cut some of these caps so the seams don't line up, mix up some mortar, and then get these caps put on this wall. I went ahead and cut all the caps first. It took a bit of time to figure out the curved part of the wall. I also wanted the seams to be over the middle of the block, so I cut a few smaller pieces to achieve that. I have placed all the concrete caps to check that everything is fitting together properly. Now I can mix up some mortar and start attaching these caps. Don't mix up too much mortar at a time because it will harden fairly quickly and you don't want to stress out because your mortar starts getting hard. I have discovered that it takes about 2 scoops to do 1 brick, so I kind of base my measurement off of that. You want to add water slowly because mortar can go from mixed properly to too thin rather quickly. Also, it's a good idea to mix it with something different than the shovel that you took it out of the bag with, in case you need to add some more. I didn't mix up too much because I just want enough to do this section here and get me past the curve. My technique is getting better. I think I'm starting to get a handle on this. I'm trying to put 1 inch of the mortar on top of these blocks, and using this trowel I find it fairly easy to get 1 inch, 4 to 5 inches long. And just stick it on here. I like using a mallet over the end of your trowel because when you knock it on the top of the block, all of your extra mortar falls off, so this is cleaner. Okay, it's time to apply the stucco to the wall. I was debating about waiting until I finished the fireplace barbecue area and doing everything at once, but then after doing some research, I found out that the type of finish we want is more challenging, so I decided that I'll be learning on the wall first. I've already added some of the stucco base layer to the curved section of the wall to try to make a smoother curve. And I've power washed the wall, so I won't be using any of the concrete adhesive. I heard that you don't need to use that on a new block wall, so I hope that isn't a mistake. We are doing a smooth Santa Barbara style finish. I've done some stucco patchwork in the past around doors and windows, but this will be my first time stuccoing a wall, and my first time attempting a smooth finish, and my first time adding color into the mix. To achieve this, you need to apply 2 top coats or color coats, and you apply the second coat before the first one dries. So I still need to figure out the timing on that one. But before I put the top coat on, I need to get the stucco scratch coat on this wall. So let's stucco this wall.
I'm only going down the back side of the wall 2 to 3 inches. The dirt level will come up close to the top of the wall, and I don't think the stucco will stick to the concrete sealer.
I have this one last section to do here, so I'm going to mix up this batch and get it on the wall. You know, it's going pretty good, but when I first started, I was kind of stressing out about just trying to get it on the same thickness on the entire wall so it's not all bumpy, and I found it a bit challenging. And then also just the timing of when do you smooth it, when do you form it, with how dry it is. It was kind of stressing me out, but getting the hang of it and learning how to deal with the stucco better. Another thing, my lower back is a bit tired. Just being bent over and being on your knees and working down here does kind of stress out your body, especially when you don't do it very often. So I'm looking forward to get this all done, and then I could take a break as this dries, and then we'll get the color coats on. Okay, the scratch coat is done and it is dried. So now it's time to apply the smooth colored top coat. You know, one of the things I'm finding challenging with using a color additive is that it's pretty hard to mix up a small quantity to do a test area, because it's 1 bag of mix to 1 bag of stucco. You can half these pretty easily, but I think beyond that you probably get some inconsistency. So I think it's time to just commit and get this done. But I can stall a little bit longer because we have some large flagstone rocks that we want to use as steps. So I want to get those cut and loosely fitted before I apply the stucco.
We have 2 places along the wall that will have steps. Since this video is already very long, I'll make a separate one showing the building of the steps using sandstone rocks. Subscribe, hit the like button, and check out all the other DIY videos on brew builds.
Hit that like button and subscribe to Brew Builds! Whoa!
Now, I'm not sure if I did the scratch coat the proper way because I put in scratches. I would think that you'd want a smooth scratch coat to give a smooth surface, but then again, you need scratches in it to give the top coat something to grip to. I know I've seen it done both ways. I've only ever put scratches in a scratch coat, so I guess it's time to stop talking and start doing.
I divided the stucco mix and color pack in half using a scale. Then put half the required amount of water per bag into this blue bucket. Add the color pack to the water first and mix thoroughly. Be careful with this stuff. It will stain anything it comes in contact with. There's some thick black goop stuck at the bottom of this bucket. I probably should have poured the water into the 5-gallon bucket first, then add the color mix. Hopefully I can get it all out. Slowly add the stucco mix to the water, mixing as you go. The directions recommend mixing for 15 minutes. Then you will want to allow the material to take its initial set. Then retemper the stucco, adding a little water if needed to reach the desired consistency. I guess that's it. Wish me luck.
Since this was all new to me, I decided to do some of the wall first before recording myself doing it. I wish I could say that it went great and show you some amazing results. Unfortunately, I can't. I realized rather quickly that doing a short wall with curves and a bullnose edge corner isn't very easy, and then trying to make it a smooth surface on top of that is quite challenging. You know, there are plenty of pro stucco videos out there where guys do a 10 by 10 foot wall in about 10 minutes and it looks amazing. I just want to show you the reality of your average DIY guy attempting to do jobs like this. So let me show you my reality.
I had a few problems getting the stucco to stick to the base coat, especially around the edge. It would either pull off the side or top when I tried to round the corner. The other challenge was getting a consistent thickness, as it went on too thick in some areas, which led to cracking. Then the material started to get dry and became hard to work with. Also, the color is looking blotchy, very light in spots, like it dried too quickly. That's the results of my first attempt at making a smooth stucco coat.
I'm not sure what to do about fixing this. I don't think I could get another thin layer of stucco on there and still have it look good. I did think about continuing on down this wall and just trying to learn and figure out how to do a better job, but really not in love with this color. So I think it might be good to try to do a semi-smooth surface and get some stucco that has some coarser sand in it. That way I can use a rubber float, and that should help even out the color and prevent it from cracking. So I'm gonna shut off this camera, go cry in my stucco, and figure out a better way to do this.
I thought I would try removing some of this before it dried completely, but it was not going to come off. I decided to take a wire brush to it and roughen up the surface to take away some of the glossiness. Hopefully this will give me a better surface to apply the second color coat to.
We had a couple of weeks of rain, but now I'm ready to get back working on this wall. I watched a few more videos and also read through some books, and I realized some of the mistakes I made when I tried applying the smooth color coat. The biggest mistake was this wall needs to be smooth before you apply the color coat. You want the color coat to be as uniform as possible in thickness, or you will end up with different shades of color. Also, since it has very little aggregate, if you put it on too thick, it will shrink and crack. All which I learned firsthand.
To fix the wall and prepare it for the new semi-smooth color coat, I'm adding a second coat of regular stucco to the wall. After the wall has dried for 15 to 30 minutes, I'll then use a green foam float to help even out the stucco. This also brings some of the aggregate to the surface, which will help release water and prevent cracking. Rinse this float often in water to remove the excess stucco. To help shape the corners and smooth the surface some, I'll then use the red rubber foam float. This type of float does a better job shaping and smoothing the wall over the green float. Keep this float clean of stucco by rinsing it in water as well. After it had dried for an hour, I used a steel trowel to remove any rough edges.
The second coat is dried and it's ready for me to apply the color coat. As I mentioned before earlier, I'm doing a semi-smooth color coat using this Omega 3030 stucco mix. I actually finished this wall over a week ago, but I've been waiting till there's no chance of rain happening for a few days. You don't want it to rain on a color coat as it is curing. So if it does rain, you do need to cover it up.
I'm dividing the stucco bag in half again, but this time we'll try mixing it in a mixing tub instead of the 5-gallon bucket. I hope to get a more consistent mix this way.
Here we go. Hopefully this will go on easier and I'll have better results than I did with the smooth coat.
You want the color coat to be about 1/8 of an inch thick. On a regular stucco wall, you would start at the top and move down the wall. On the small retaining wall, I found it easier to do the sides first, moving the stucco float up the wall starting at the bottom. Then add some stucco to the top of the wall and blend and round the top edges, working about a 3 to 4 foot section at a time.
I was able to get the color coat on half of this wall. We are much happier with this color, and most of it looks nice. It looks good from a distance, but there are a few issues that I had that I'll show you. One of the things I discovered is that the timing of when to texture the stucco is very important. And since I'm kind of slow, I found that the time that I needed to start texturing the stucco was the same time that the stucco in my tray started to firm up. So this is a challenging project to do by yourself. To help with that on the rest of the wall, instead of mixing up a half a bag of stucco at a time, I'm going to mix up a third or a quarter of a bag of stucco at a time. Okay, let's go check out some of my issues.
Overall, this looks much better than my attempt at the smooth stucco, but there are a few light color patches showing up. On this corner here, I tried shaping the corner after it had dried too much, and I think that's what caused these scratches in it. On a few places on top of the wall, I didn't get the stucco to blend enough before it dried. And I do see a few cracks forming where it must have gone on too thick. This is also the area that I was doing when the stucco started to harden and I needed to mix a new batch. Part of the timing problem of doing something like this yourself. I'm still getting some inconsistent color on the curved part of the wall, and this spot here just didn't stick. Must have been something on the wall or a dry chunk in the mix that I missed. I'll work on some of these problem areas when I do the rest of the wall. Hopefully you won't notice my patchwork. To help with the problem of the stucco drying up on me, I mixed up just a quarter of a bag of stucco at a time. This was more work to figure out the correct quantities, but much easier to mix up this smaller amount in a bucket. And I shouldn't have the problem of it starting to dry up on me. To the wall we go. I found once again putting the stucco on the sides first, then the top worked well for me. Then I would follow up with a London trowel and a bullnose trowel to shape the edge. While that was setting, I would mix up another small batch and continue on down the wall. Then come back with the red rubber float to the first section and start smoothing out the wall, blending any imperfections.
The second time I did the color coat, it came out much better, but there are still some patchy color issues, so I've been waiting for the stucco to cure completely before finishing this video. However, it's been over 2 weeks and the stucco is still changing in color tone and getting lighter in color, so it still may work out. However, we do like this darker shade, so we ended up getting some paint to match the stucco color chart. Oddly enough, when we painted the back side of the wall, it matched the lighter stucco color, even though the paint matches the color chart. I don't get it. So other than the patchy color coat, I am very pleased with this semi-smooth, colored stucco retaining wall that I built. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video and you've learned a thing or two, or at least learned what not to do. My goal in the videos I make is to hopefully encourage and inspire you to do your own DIY home improvements. I think the best compliment I could ever get would be someone to say that after watching my video, they decided to tackle their own project. Speaking of projects, my next project is a fireplace and barbecue structure. We've already been cooking meat on this guy, but I'm ready to get it off these blocks. Time to go grab the chop saw and start cutting some metal studs.